say less. I'm back in that bag again. Yeah, yeah. Oh, say less. I'm back in that. Yeah. What you doing? Yeah, yeah. I'm back in that. Hey, where you going? Hey.
Hey there, everyone, and welcome to the SPL Waiting Room, your one-stop shop for all things SMITE Pro League, and I'm truncating it right there because I've gotten too long on all the other points, and I want to get back to the concise nature. The new year, new SPL Waiting Room. Same, pretty much, actually, for most of the show when it comes down to it. We're going to be talking about a lot of stuff. I got Dave, I got Jmac, I got Trelli. I almost did the thing, for some reason, when whoever's sitting on that side of the table, I always want to swap the names, even when I know that it's wrong. And so I almost pointed and said Trelli and Jmac. And I don't know why that's such a habit.
I remember
Do you
when
have that when you sit here?
No.
Okay. Yeah, so you're just better than me. All right. Yeah,
No,
okay.
what I was going to say is I remember when I first started on Paladins with you, and I didn't have anyone's name down pat yet. I was calling a lot of people the wrong names. There was a lot of Rain Day for Pretty Hair and Goremiser.
That was like me and Pretty Hair.
Right, it was completely wrong.
Really fun.
Yep, there was a lot of that going on.
And that happened. What was funnier is that it spread. Like, it wasn't just you
That's
doing
right,
it.
we all went through a
started
period
doing it.
for a couple weeks where none of us could get the names right. I forgot about that, and it was wild. It was a crazy time to be alive.
Well, hey, SMITE is
Anyway,
not
SMITE,
Paladins,
that's
and
right.
SMITE has been happening. In fact, we had week 1 just last week, and I think there was a lot of, I want to say, pleasant surprises that kind of came through. We're actually going to be looking, you can kind of see over on the side, the expected versus unexpected a little later. So right now, what you can look at instead is maybe some quick recap graphics by Blues Ultra. For those of you who don't know who Blues Ultra is, I recommend that you follow them on Twitter or Reddit or Instagram. They post these. They also do some really dope patch recaps whenever there's an update for SMITE.
Oh, yeah.
All in the same kind of graphical nature. It can tell you some fun stuff, right? Whether your team's been getting the kills, if Genetics has been playing chess.
He's got the chessboard behind him.
Actually, what's even funnier is technically most game wins, it says question mark, but Genetics, because he had 4 SMITE wins plus a chess win that got broadcast out. So there's fun little Easter eggs, let's call them, like
That's
that. Right. You're also going to be able to find, like, hey, did your team control the Pyromancer the best? It's always a lot of fun information. I like using a lot of this stuff. I know that Blues also works on a spreadsheet. It's not out yet for this year, but I always recommend it because it's always fantastic and always brings so much.
Wow, our shortest game
diff was 26.
Yeah, wait, where's the shortest game?
That's shortest game was 28 minutes this week. Longest game 53. But also, the gold diff.
Hey guys, that's a lot of SMITE, man.
Yeah, that was
a lot of SMITE.
Some might even call it too much.
Yeah, that was you and I, Charlie, on that game 1 gold diff
the
between Dragons and Gladiators. That was a 40-minute game, and they had that gold diff
for 20 minutes.
That was the end of the game, but they started their siege with like a 14K gold lead at that point, and for the 15 minutes they spent trying to siege, it went from like 14 to 26K.
This is also where we can make fun of the Chaos Division right now for having a bunch of losers.
That's right. They got one more 0-2 team.
5-3 for Order versus Chaos.
Bozos over there.
Yeah. Tough start for the Levias, Dragons as well. Seems like there's just some buzzsaws over in the Order side of things. I imagine growth from the Chaos division. I don't think it's going to stay that way all year long.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm surprised that the Leviathans have struggled in the way that they have. Seeing an 0-2 next to their team name is still wild to me.
You might be able to say that that's something that was unexpected.
I would say that, and maybe I'll talk about that in a bit later.
I'd say shout out to Stu for having the 3rd highest KDA despite his team going 0-2, and of that 0-2 going 0-4 in games individually this weekend.
That's my AD carry.
And still having the 3rd best KDA of the week.
And you know what, Dave? That's a very perfect little pivot for us because that's your AD carry that we're talking about there. Actually, a pretty good KD because, like you said, it was 3rd, right?
3rd.
A lot of undying games.
I got Stu. That's right. KDA is not always indicative of a lot of fantasy points. All that means is that they didn't die a lot. Like
that
Stu could have like
lose you a lot of.
He
points.
could have like a 5 KDA with 2 kills and an assist each game, right? So I'm not getting a lot of fantasy
11,
points.
I believe.
Yeah. So
just across the weekend,
two deaths in 4 games.
24, 4 and 19.
Oh man.
Right. So anyway, We'll talk about it in a moment.
Well, and that's the moment is now. Fantasy scores.
Okay, great.
Oh, man.
One of the things I think, it depends on how we want to go through this. We have one matchup up front, and since it says it there, we're going to go immediately into, did Jordan win? Because every week, I had devised a schedule for a bunch of head-to-heads. Every week, Jordan's going to be playing against somebody. This week, he went against me.
Oof. Buzzsaw.
And chat, you helped Jordan, and you lost. So how does that feel? I got a stacked team, though. What's wild is I thought that this team was going to be very explosive. And, when you got teams and variety and they're winning, it's going to help out. Hurry had, I think, a hell of a week as well. 77 points for him is actually kind of nasty.
Support?
Did you steal Mealma from me?
74 for Paul.
And
I mean, 77 as a support is nuts.
yeah, no, that's actually kind of wild.
That's going to be a big value pick, I
it's
think.
all those assists, man.
41 assists.
That's
absurd.
That's a value support pick. I think
Everyone gets in there.
I think the fact that Hurrywind is panning out is going to prove to be
It also-
really, really strong for you.
It also
I was
helps.
really nervous about that when I got Hurry, and he is paid off. He could be terrible for the rest of the phase, and I'm pretty happy about this.
I'll say it does also help a couple of the players where they had a 3-game set versus a 2-game. Obviously, losing one of them doesn't always help, but even the one that the Ravens lost against the Hounds, they were winning almost the entirety of that game until one moment there. So getting 5 games of points certainly does help her win. But yeah, 41 assists is absolutely bonkers for a support.
It's also, and what's wild is just because the way things are weighted, but deathless games give extra points and stuff like that. I tweeted it out at one point, guys, and so you should know about that. I also want to say that despite the fact that I feel like I had a stacked team, I was actually, I think, 3rd overall in terms of total points. I'm going to steal this moment because it's not fully fleshed out, but I had made a schedule for a bunch of head-to-heads behind the scenes to see you know what? This week we're going to put Jmac against Trelli or whatever. Actually, it was Dave against Trelli. Trelli, you won that matchup. Jmac, you went up against Miff. Miff won that one.
Yeah.
And Hazer went up against Frost. Hazer was the winner of that. So if you were wondering in head-to-heads, there's some of that. If you want to look at the totality,
259.
Trelli, you were number 1, man.
335?
Wow, I am 1.5 ahead of Jordan, and that's for 3rd to bottom. I'm at 5th or 6th place by 1.5.
God, the Barra Ven stack is nutty from the fact that is such a gamble from Trelli on Ven and
it was
Barra.
Didn't you say that they came in and when you said that's who you drafted, Barra said why?
Yeah, verbatim, I said, Barra, does it put a little bit of extra weight that you're my ADC? And he said, you picked me on purpose? And I said, yeah, I also got Ven. And he said, bro, why?
Oh, no.
That's why.
You know what? I said very early on that my team was probably not going to win.
Yeah.
But definitely not going to lose.
And you nailed it. You're 4th on the leaderboard right now.
And I'm standing by that for the entire phase. Obviously, there's going to be some better or worse weeks. My team is going to avoid me having to cosplay, but also I won't be picking anyone's cosplay, and that's all I know.
Maybe that's the real win.
I keep forgetting about that part. If I'm honest with you, that part has completely slipped my mind.
So who's last right now is Frost?
Frost by
Who's the biggest scorer?
30 points.
It was Ven, but look at awesome Jake.
I was about to say Jake.
Hurry wasn't even the top scoring
82?
support.
Yeah, Jake got an 82.
It is very hard to earn points as a support. That is wild.
That Oni Warriors team.
I wonder
it's a good one to own some stock in.
I wonder if at the end, just as a bonus fun, we see which SPL team itself was the best fantasy SPL team. Because last season in phase 3, Hindu drafted the entirety with a little bit of your help with the Leviathans, and he won because the Leviathans were just a better team up to that point. I wonder if at the end we kind of at the end of phase we kind of tally up the individual teams.
Yeah, I'm sure. We can do that.
I have all the players' individual scores, so it's going to be pretty easy. Actually, very conveniently sorted by team as well, so that's going to be really easy to do.
So did we do the actual head-to-head matchups, or are we just doing strictly for actual real standings? Are we just going by?
I think for actual standings,
I can keep an under the table thing for.
No, I just want to know if
now that you've mentioned
I just want to know if I should be sad
that
I lost to Trelli and therefore I'm 0-1.
No,
or if I should be happy that I'm 4th out of everyone.
No, for end of phase, it's just the top scorer and bottom scorer on that regard.
That's what I was looking for.
The only other head-to-head that matters for chat is the ones against Jordan because they want Jordan to win their matchup so that way they can get their drops.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, Trelli, I hate you, and you're stinky.
That's okay. If you ain't first, you're last.
But, nobody was beating Trelli this week.
Only one hit 300.
I've now very, very quickly, haphazardly. I'm going to keep track of that.
No, you don't have to.
Well, now I'm just curious.
Too late now.
The other thing, and Dave, this is actually very pertinent to yours specifically, because we've seen Trelli did the best this week. You are the one who's going up against Jordan next week.
Ooh.
So you're the one who chat is going to yell at. If
it would have been close this week.
Yeah, it's 20 point.
Yeah, but
I can't believe how close Jordan and I are in points. That's wild.
Well, Paul really performed.
Oh, you and Miff.
For Jordan
You're
this week.
1.5 ahead of Miff.
I need Dardes to
Scary D as well.
I need Dardes to pick it up. Everyone else, you're hanging. Dardes, I need you to spin it up a little bit.
Yeah, above 50 is your bar as a coach.
I'd say honestly, mine pretty even. Like Benny was just under 50. But Coast was like the bottom of the ADCs, which is a little surprising, but maybe not so much.
I forgot I had Kassir, and that's going to be because I didn't get to draft the coach I wanted.
Oh, that's right.
Trelli obliterated all of us so heavily. Nobody else was within 11 points of 300, and Trelli had 335. That is unreal.
Yeah. And you know what, Trelli? I'm going to look at, fine, okay. If the Ravens keep doing what they're doing,
his worst performer, obviously excluding coach, was 39.
I think Fino having 61 points despite the Leviathans being 2-0 is awesome.
Yeah, adapting had like 24 kills, right? So
did I say 2-0 or 0-2?
You said 2-0.
I meant 0-2. 0-2 for the Leviathans.
Well, the good news is that we'll have plenty of time to maybe discuss how our teams are doing. Actually, I think actively on broadcast as they perform. What we can instead move is now to that thing we were hinting about, that little teaser we dropped earlier. Now it's not even going to be the teaser. It's now expected versus unexpected.
I didn't
expect that happened. Oh, man.
That was scary.
You should have. It's been written there the whole time. Looking at some of the things that happened last week and trying to kind of see that happened and we well, for lack of a better term, because it's on there, expected it. Or, oh, wow, really? Week 1? So the first one that's on that list is the Oni Warriors, right? They come in, they win the kickoff. Week 1, everybody's still kind of talking pretty high about them. They do well, and Trelli, for lack of a better term, it's not surprising. It's expected.
No, that goes if we're keeping tallies, that goes in the expected category.
Yeah. Thank God that's where I put it.
Yeah, well, that's good because we all agree about that one. It's no secret if you watch the draft, Pagon was going to be my first pick. It got stolen away from me, so I went to Fine OK. But I had a lot of faith in this team as a whole, just by the way they performed. I guess if you go back, 2 months ago and look at our predictions before we saw
nobody had any hope. Then kickoff changed a lot.
Yeah, no, that definitely changed our expectations. We didn't know how this team was going to mesh, and we got to talk to them all, and we were like, hey, did you expect to play this well together? And they're like,
even they didn't.
They're like, oh no, not at all. It's just, and I love the idea of the fact that their comms aren't that loud. It's just like, I kind of hope they stun here. Oh, they did stun. Nice. Now I can follow up. It's not like they're just meshing really well together. Their gameplays work in the same sort of style.
Yo, I got 3.
Yeah, like, hey, I'm going in, and I got you. And that's just sort of the mechanics. And so far, it's working out for them.
Well, they're all in such a same mindset that they can, to your point, they can get away with the comms being a bit quieter because I think they all just play the game in the same way. Yep. Where nobody has to say, I'm going in, because they're all always going in, right? Yeah. And so it's just their mindsets link up so heavily that with the scrappy nature of their play, I think they've been able to get by with maybe quieter comms. The question is when the game potentially slows down, if it moves away from this style of gameplay being effective,
do they stumble?
Right. That's the question.
And I guess we'll have to at that point, just wait and see, right? Because I think week in, week out, at least this weekend, I'm still expecting them to do pretty well. An unexpected thing that happened this last week, though, Jmac, the Ravens. I think they were, the last draft team in the division. Trelli, part of me thinks maybe I should have gone to you because they're on your fantasy team, but maybe we'll get to your point. They absolutely look amazing.
Yeah, no, the Ravens kind of just hit the ground running, and they took no prisoners in any of their matchups. And again, the one game that they did drop was an unfortunate blunder by them in a mid-game, almost late-game team fight around 25 minutes. It's the only game where they didn't have control. And I think that's the important part of this team is we were unsure exactly what the pacing that these guys were going to set in their matches. We didn't know if this was going to be we're going to wait for 25, 30 minutes and then fight. We didn't know if this was going to be we're going to fight early kind of team. So waiting to see kind of that first set expectations, what do these guys want to do? it's win early, and they're winning early. They're winning hard. They're trusting each other, and I think that they have found a support in Hurrywin that really fits the bill of this team. Because when we talk about like the Bolts of old, you have players like Jake who want to get active. They want to get in there immediately. They want to be that playmaker, and the rest of the team saying, maybe not necessarily playmaking. Maybe we hold back just a little bit on that. But now that you get Hurrywin, who's a little bit more calm in his comms, a little bit more communicative in that regard, you have somebody who's able to really hold down the fort for this team, who's be able to really see things clearly from this backline position, even sometimes from this frontline position, depending on the gods he's playing. And also, I think maybe a little bit of disrespect thrown towards Hurrywin, giving him Yemoja as many times as he had, because that was like some world-class Yemoja performance that he had in that first set that he got to play it. I don't think we'll ever see him get to play it again. But I think it was just a team, when you have a team like the Bolts, who was not performing very well in Phase 3, who kind of had an all-right run at Worlds at that time, took a little bit of time to go through, you kind of expected the early phase woes maybe to come through before the gas pedal got hit. It's the opposite for these guys.
And the thing I think that is really big to me is well, like what you'd said, right? Where sometimes how playmaking, especially very quickly, depending on whether or not the team's on the same page, can just turn into inting, right? And that's kind of something they've suffered with. It feels like finally getting that rhythm back that maybe they had wanted. I was really, and I think all of us, like even Bera, to an extent, we're skeptic. Like, okay, you've got 3 guys that we're doing okay, but like Bera and Vin haven't looked great for a couple of years. They've been very much middle of the pack, and then depending on supports or what kind of plays, matchups, things like that, rising or falling. They did still have impressive win streaks throughout the year, but normally a Phase 2 style team. And it's nice to see them start off the year with a pretty big, I guess, win, right? I mean, two big wins to start off their standings. Another thing, though, that happened this weekend, something that maybe falls in the expected list, Trelli, is the Gladiators, and unfortunately the struggles that were kind of expected and acknowledged coming into this weekend.
Yeah, unfortunately that was expected. This is a team that we all assumed were going to have some growing pains. It's just one of those situations where you're behind the 8 ball. If you look at the synergy and the skill level of everyone else you're up against. Your big win was getting into the SPL, and now your next big win is going to be, I suppose, finding your first win. Because in my opinion, there are very few, I guess, I'm not going to say winnable, because any matchup is winnable, but very few easy matchups for the Gladiators. I think every single one of their matchups, if they're trying to find a win here, is going to be a scrap, right? They're going to have to bring it to them late game, I believe. It might have been me and Jmac talking about it, but they're okay finding early leads. It's just 20-plus minutes, they fall flat more often than not. They were looking good underneath their Titan, sure, but they need to find that consistent team fight, and so far they haven't found it.
And this team will be playing the Hounds on Sunday, and I think that there's something we're probably going to talk about it a lot a day of, but that is probably one of the bigger wins for either of these teams to get in their respective standings, right? Yep. It's out of division, so you're only going to play them this one time. Typically, over the years past, like, it would, at least in the standings as of right now, with the way things have gravitated and what we've seen out of play, be the most equitable to the Scarabs versus like the Valkyries of last year. Although I think both of these teams are playing margins above the teams I just mentioned.
I'm not gonna say that this is going to change the fortunes of the Gladiators, and suddenly they're going to be, top 3 team in the league. I do think I noticed, though, struggles with Snoopy not being here in studio and Scary D not being here in studio, specifically with Snoopy, because he made some uncharacteristic mistakes. I think this past weekend there were moments where he's like walking into like an ice storm, like he's out of it and walks into it and dies, and then suddenly his team's being sieged, and whether that's just lack of communication or moments where, the not being here in studio is maybe affecting him. I think getting this team, all 5 in studio, and starting to build from that is going to be a big jumping off point for this team. Again, I don't see that suddenly springboarding them into a top 3, top 4 spot.
But improving.
But if you're looking at individual mistakes that otherwise would not have happened and may have changed the outcome of some of the individual games, I think there are moments that you can look at it, and not having everyone here yet has maybe negatively impacted this team. I just, it's growing pains is such a buzzword, and it's just another example of that.
Yeah.
and having everyone together as 5 is such a bonus, and building up that synergy and being there in studio. I mean, this team has been through an 0-2 deficit turning into a three-game win streak to qualify into the SPL. I don't see them struggling as heavily as Valkyries and Scarabs and qualifier teams of past have, but I do see them continuing to struggle.
Concerns.
But some brightness over the horizon when everyone is able to get here.
And the last one on the unexpected list, and in this one, to kind of balance out the Gladiators' struggle, there's been some unexpected losses, specifically Jmac, from the Leviathans. Very, very surprising to see them come in. And granted, maybe they weren't the easiest matchups, but it's definitely not the Leviathans I expected to see.
No, the Leviathans are also still kind of a team where we're wondering what their identity is going to be, because you lost Panatom, who was kind of your aggressive early game, get the ball rolling style of jungler. You lose your solo laner, whether that be Yarkor or Haddix for the team, who can consistently hold down the fort over there. You don't really lose that with Final K. I would equate Final K to those solo laners. I think right now the biggest problem the Leviathans have is that they just don't have Shinto here at the moment. Shinto playing from home as well also kind of makes it a little bit more difficult. He's not able to maybe make the biggest impact plays that he would like to. I think that there are also moments where we saw in these sets where the Leviathans nearly threw a game. I mean, there's one moment where Zatman walks up at a Phoenix Siege and says, okay, cool, I'm going to pop my ultimate and walk away from this fight, and then he gets crit twice and he dies. I think for this team, once Shinto gets here, communication is going to be a lot easier. Execution on field for their mids can be better. You're going to be able to really stand up with adapting, with Wrong You to make these kinds of plays, because really this weekend just felt like, at least for the Leviathans, very uncharacteristic for a couple of players on the team. Adapting wasn't as aggressive as we're used to seeing him. Final K was still doing just okay over in his role. Zatman was doing his usual, I'm not going to die as much early. I'm going to sit back, get a little bit more passive farm. But Shinto dying as many times as he did over the course of this weekend is not what we're used to seeing with Shinto, whether that be a byproduct of him not being here and playing and having to play on a little bit higher ping than usual, or him just not fully being comfortable with his new roster, whether that be he's not comfortable with adapting just yet or just in general. That's to be determined. So I think similar to the Gladiators, once you get Shinto here, this will elevate the Leviathans up. I think this is a team that we had slated to where they could be a top team right away, just because it's essentially the same core to Leviathans. You slot in a couple of players who can play to the same level, if not maybe slightly higher than their previous incarnation. Or this is a team that could struggle because they're not used to adapting or Final K style just yet.
It's, I never really thought about it entirely, because it was. I always thought, hey, there's a new jungler that you have to kind of get acquainted to, but I don't think my brain fully accepted what that means, right? How different it is, because Shinto, for all of competitive up to this point, has played beside Panatom, and so now having a new jungler. It is a very big difference. Definitely something I expect to see. And that kind of leads us forward towards, week number 2, specifically a match that I'm looking forward to. You can see it on the side there. The Kings taking on the Leviathans. The Kings here have been clean and methodical, whereas the Leviathans have been leaving us with questions asked. So I guess the question is kind of quick around the room. We only have like 2 minutes, so relatively quickly. Thoughts on this matchup? We'll start with Dave and then go counterclockwise.
Kings should win, just based on recent play. However, I could see the Leviathan sneaking away a win in this one. I could see this one going 2-1 because it hasn't been the kill issues from the Leviathans. It's been, again, uncharacteristic mistakes from the quality of players that we know that the Leviathans have. So I think the Kings are playing far too clean a brand of Smite. The Kings should win the set. However, if you do see great post-week 1 growth from the Leviathans, I could see it getting interesting. But, I'm giving 75% confidence to the Kings in taking a win.
How are you feeling about this one, Jmac?
Yeah, I'm probably throwing about 80-20 over to the Kings. Like Dave said, I think the Leviathans can very easily find a way to sneak one in early against Kings, because beating the Kings is about beating them early enough to where you don't have to worry about their late game. But the Kings have been so good about holding down the fort in the early game to get to that point. Even going on record, saying there's less on the map to do. There's a little bit less farm, a little bit less macro to worry about. But it's allowed them to focus a little bit more on their early game, on these early team fights, and keeping themselves from falling too far behind.
Trelli?
Yeah, I think you guys hit the nail on the head. I think this is a big week for the Leviathans to show us how much they can improve.
It's a hard way to start your week off,
It's not a great time, but they got to rise to the occasion. I think what Dave said is still true, though. If we see some tremendous growth, They could surprise us.
Now, I'm curious if I heard it correctly. We have a video for this matchup that I'm actually personally curious to see what it is. So I want to, if we still have that queued up, I'd love to watch it.
Camelot Kings versus the Leviathans, the reigning world champions versus the previous reigning world champions. Historically, the Leviathans have taken a backseat in Phase 1, resting on their laurels and preparing for later phases. Now, as the challengers once more, they'll attempt to stop the Camelot Kings in their undefeated streak. Tune in and find out.
You know what I'm going to do?
I'm hyped.
You gonna tune in?
Are you
I'm
hyped?
gonna tune in.
I'm going to tune in, and I'm going to find out. Based on what I've heard here, I have expectations, though. And now, let's see, I'm trying to tie it all together. We did like an expected, unexpected.
Unexpected.
So expectations.
Yeah.
Oh, the Kings of Leviathans. Yeah, see, trying to bring it all together. This is
Expect
waiting
the
room.
unexpected.
Of course, if you're watching this live, thanks for tuning in. If you're watching this in our time tomorrow, which is before the SPL starts, depending on how SCC
Hey,
goes.
Future Dave.
Thanks for tuning in.
How are you doing today?
Of course, if you're watching
Good.
on YouTube, we appreciate
see
you
you.
and love you as much as you can. There's probably a lot of videos that are recommended there that you should probably check out and watch, as well as past waiting rooms, even though they're probably not super relevant anymore. You should tune in and check them out. And of course, you can always watch us on Thursdays whenever we slot it in. This time seems potentially 2:30. So a lot going forward, I think, to look forward to this weekend, and a lot that I'm going to be looking into. Get your eShell shakers. Tune into SPL tomorrow at 1 p.m. But for now, we're going to kick it to a break, and then there's Smite the Devs. So we'll see you later.